You've probably heard these two words, right? Hinduism and Hindutva. They sound so similar, and honestly, they get mixed up all the time. But here's the thing, they're not the same at all. One is this incredibly ancient religious tradition, and the other, it's a modern political ideology. So let's unpack exactly what sets them apart. So let's just get right to it. The big question. Are Hinduism and Hindutva the same thing? I mean, this isn't just some academic question. It's right at the heart of culture, religion, and politics in modern India. And really, it has an impact way beyond that. The short answer? Nope, not even close. And look, getting this distinction right is so important. Because when we mix them up, when we confuse this really diverse ancient religion with a modern political movement, we completely miss the huge differences in what they're trying to do, what they value, and the kind of world they envision. All right, to really get this, let's start with Hinduism first. We've got to go way, way back. I mean, we're talking about a tradition with roots stretching back for millennia. So what is Hinduism at its core? Well, it's this incredibly vast and varied religious tradition. For a practicing Hindu, the focus is really on personal spiritual goals, things like living an ethical life, that's called dharma, and the ultimate goal, which is spiritual liberation or moksha. It's all about a personal path, not about a political system. And you know what's really key here? It's diversity. I mean, think about it. Unlike a lot of other major world religions, there's no single founder you can point to. There's no one single holy book that everyone follows to the letter. And there's definitely no central figure, like a pope calling the shots. Instead, you've got all these different philosophies, tons of deities, and a history that's all about coexisting with other faiths, like Buddhism and Jainism. Okay, so that's Hinduism in a nutshell. Now let's completely switch gears and talk about Hindutva. And this is a big switch. We're jumping from the ancient world right into the 20th century. And we're moving from the world of religion into the world of politics. Right away, the contrast is just stark. Hinduism's origins are ancient, shrouded in time. Hindutva, it's a political ideology born in the 20th century. The name itself means Hinduness, and its primary goal is very, very clear and very political, to create what's called a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu nation. And if you look at one of its main architects, a guy named V.D. Savarkar, he really laid it all out. He said, Hindutva is not a word, but a history. And when he said that, he wasn't talking about just spiritual beliefs. No, he meant a full-on cultural and political project. The whole point was to define who truly belongs to the Indian nation, and that definition was based on a shared Hindu-focused civilization. So what do experts call this? Well, analysts and scholars often describe Hindutva as a type of right-wing ethno-nationalism. The mission is pretty straightforward. Redefine what it means to be Indian in primarily Hindu terms, and establish a kind of cultural dominance. And a major criticism you'll hear is that this framework often ends up treating religious minorities, especially Muslims and Christians, as if they're outsiders in their own country. Okay, so we've got our two definitions down. Now, let's put them side by side. I want to walk you through three core distinctions. This is where it's all going to snap into focus. All right, let's break this down. First up, their basic nature. Hinduism is all about spiritual goals, right? Liberation, right living. A Hindutva, it's about political power and national identity. Totally different goals. Second, their scope. Hinduism is super broad. It makes room for tons of different beliefs and paths. A Hindutva, on the other hand, tries to create one single, unified Hindu identity, and that often involves pushing others out. And finally, their relationship with the state. Hinduism can thrive anywhere, under any government. But for Hindutva, linking cultural identity directly to the power of the state is the whole point. Okay, fine, they're different. But so what? Why does this even matter in the real world? What actually happens when people get these two things confused? Well, one huge area is ethics and values. In Hinduism, you hear a lot about core principles like ahimsa, that's nonviolence, and tolerance. But then you look at political movements based on Hindutva, and you see reports from human rights groups that link them to communal violence and discrimination against minorities. It's a really sharp contrast. Here's another big one. Look at how they use religious symbols. For Hindu, a symbol like Om or the name of a deity like Ram, these are sacred. They're about worship, spirituality, a personal connection. But Hindutva ideology takes those very same symbols and basically turns them into political flags. They become markers of national loyalty. And all of a sudden, how you feel about a religious symbol can be used as a test of how patriotic you are. That's a huge shift. You'll often hear supporters of Hindutva describe it as just a way of life, or cultural nationalism. But that phrasing makes you stop and think, right? If it's a way of life, whose way of life is it exactly? And maybe more importantly, who gets forced to conform to it? And this brings us to a really crucial point. This whole debate about Hindutva, it's not just a simple conflict between Hindus and non-Hindus. Not at all. In fact, for a lot of practicing Hindus, pushing back against the political ideology of Hindutva isn't an attack on their religion. Far from it. For them, it's actually about defending their faith, protecting that diverse, pluralistic tradition from being hijacked for purely political purposes. And really, that leaves us with a much bigger question to chew on. Because this whole distinction between Hinduism and Hindutva, it's not just happening in a vacuum. It's part of a global story about nationalism, identity, and religion. It forces us all to ask a really tough question. In the world we live in today, where exactly do we draw the line between faith, culture, and political power? And who gets to draw it?